something intensely stupid was happening in Congress. And this I have some serious comments about. Cory Booker is just an awful senator. He was a bad mayor. He was a guy who talk about people who grandstand. Talk about egos in politics. You have to talk about Cory Booker, a guy who did the whole food stamp challenge where he pretended that people on food stamps are living only on the food they get through food stamps, which is not true. It is called Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Supplemental, as in like beyond the food that you already buy. Cory Booker did that. He was famous for posturing and grandstanding. He was very pro-Israel when he was mayor of New Jersey. Now, of course, he's very anti-Israel as a senator from New Jersey. And Cory Booker, of course, is the guy who also did his famous kind of screaming routine. Who was it against? The one where he's like making the funny hands, the jazz hands, and he went crazy on somebody in Congress, and it was really ridiculous. Well, now he's doing it again. This time it's with Mike Pompeo. So Mike Pompeo, who's the former head of the CIA, and now is being nominated for the Secretary of State position. He is brought up on charges by Cory Booker, and Cory Booker asks him the most ridiculous question I've ever seen asked in Congress by anyone at any time ever, which is saying a lot because Congress is filled with people of low IQ. Cory Booker, man, he takes the cake. Here's Cory Booker asking Mike Pompeo, I kid you not, about what he thinks about gay sex. I am not kidding. This is a thing that happened and is now in the congressional record, the same congressional record that hosts debates between Daniel Webster and his opponents. Has Cory Booker asking Mike Pompeo what he thinks of sodomy. No joke. Here it is.
Right. Do you believe that gay sex is a perversion? Yes or no?
Senator, if I can,
yes or no, sir. Do you believe that gay sex is a perversion? Because it's what you said here in one of your speeches. Yes or no? Do you believe gay sex is a perversion?
Senator, I'm going to give you the same answer I just gave you previously. My respect for every individual, regardless of their sexual orientation, is the same.
Have you seen Brokeback Mountain? Did you cry? Did you make a weird face when Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal were going at it? You know, Mr. Presumptive Secretary? Did you like Moonlight? Were you a little turned on during that beach scene? Because if not, I'm not sure you can be Secretary of State. Did you watch Call Me By Your Name in slow motion? Did you? Did you see the scene with the peach? What did you think of it? Like this is, what in the world? What in the world? Like this is a thing that's happening now. No matter how crazy you think the Republicans are, everybody, I'm not even talking Republicans now. No matter how crazy you think Republicans are, folks, this is like beyond. Okay, it's supremely crazy. So I got into a debate about this with a friend of mine named Jane Costin over at Vox. So what's funny about this is that Jane originally, if you'll recall, a few months back, wrote a pretty nasty piece about me for the New York Times. But being a genial sort of fellow, I reached out, and now we're pretty friendly. Jane is a lesbian, and she was very much in favor of this line of questioning. And so I was wondering what in the world, why does it matter what exactly Mike Pompeo thinks of gay sex? Like, does he have to watch gay porn in order for him, like, show us how much you like gay sex? Mister, if you want me to vote for your confirmation, you are going to have to show me how much you enjoy subscribing to Playgirl. Right now, show me your subscription. Sir! Okay, so why exactly is this relevant? So Jane was trying to make the argument that as a public official, Mike Pompeo should feel good about gay sex because he's going to have to defend the rights of gay people. This is, I think, a very foolish argument. First of all, this is plainly religious bigotry. Okay, virtually every religious person in the United States, every deeply religious person, every Bible-believing person in the United States believes that homosexual activity is a sin. I'm an Orthodox Jew. I believe homosexual activity is a sin. Now, welcome to a free country where I think the government should not be involved in anybody's sex life. I've been libertarian on the gay marriage issue longer than Barack Obama, right? And with all of this, I mean, I've been saying since legit 2012, 2011, that there should be a libertarian position from the government on same-sex marriage. I can believe both things. Right? I believe lots of things are sinful. As a religious person, I think that it's sinful for you to be a racist. I also think that you have a right to be a racist in the United States because we have something called free speech. I think that it's sinful for, I think lots of things in life are sinful. I think that it is sinful for you to marry your aunt. But do I have like a specific, real concern about people marrying their aunts in terms of public policy? Not like especially. I don't think it's a major issue on the plate right now. I think that it's sinful to take drugs, but I'm pretty libertarian when it comes to marijuana, for example. So again, this is how most religious people in the United States think. They think that there is a difference between what I religiously believe to be a sin and what the government should police. And what Cory Booker should be asking here is, what is your perspective on how gay people abroad should be treated? And Mike Pompeo just said they should be treated with the same respect accorded to anybody else, right? Which is perfectly acceptable. But what I think Jane was getting at, and what Booker is actually getting at, is something a little bit deeper, which is their suggestion is that they don't believe you, that they don't believe me. If I say that I think that homosexual activity is a sin, But I also think that it's a free country. You're free to think I'm an idiot, and you're free to disobey me, and you're free to do whatever you want. I mean, I can't give you orders. You're an adult. Do whatever the hell you want, right? That if I say that, I must not be sincere if I think something's a sin. In order for me to believe that you have a right to something, I have to believe that thing is good. This is a really dangerous mentality. It's the same mentality that, on the flip side, says on the left that there is no First Amendment except for rhetoric we like, right? Because obviously everyone believes that, right? The only way that you should agree with the First Amendment free speech right to say something is if you agree with the thing being said. That, of course, destroys the concept of the First Amendment. The whole purpose of freedom is that you have freedom to do things that I may not like. That's the whole purpose of freedom. If we all did the same things, you wouldn't need freedom. Freedom would be irrelevant. But that's not the question being asked. So the real implication here, of course, is that if you're a religious Christian, you cannot be the Secretary of State. Right? That's what Cory Booker really is saying. He's saying that if you're a religious Christian and you believe homosexual activity is a sin, even if you're libertarian governmentally, even if you think that the United States should defend the rights of people all over the world on these issues, you really don't believe it because secretly deep down you have animus toward gay sex. You don't like watching gay people go at it, or you think it's sinful. Right? It is a religious test, right? It is prescribed by the Constitution of the United States. What Cory Booker is doing here right now is a religious test. He is saying if you are a religious Christian and you believe the Bible, you cannot be Secretary of State. That's what this says. Now, the great irony of this, the thing that's really incredible about this, is Cory Booker then goes on to question Mike Pompeo about Frank Gaffney and Bridget Gabriel. So Frank Gaffney runs the Center for Security Policy, very, very hawkish, very hard on Islam and radical Islam in particular. Bridget Gabriel runs something called Act for America, which is also a group that is opposed to the influence of Sharia law and radical Islam. Now, I may not agree with everything that Frank and Bridget say, but the idea that anyone who's ever associated with Frank and Bridget is somehow guilty of some grave sin is simply ridiculous. Bridget Gabriel is a Christian Lebanese woman who was forced to live for years in like an 8x10 bunker because of Islamic terrorism in Lebanon. So she has a pretty good case to make against Islamic terror. But there's another thing here that's really funny. Listen to Cory Booker go after Pompeo on his association with Gaffney and Gabriel.
Were you silent in your position of authority against these words that are violative of the American Constitution? Were you silent with him?
Senator, my record on this is unambiguous.
Sir, then if that's your response, you did not say anything to call out his remarks. What about Bridget Gabriel? Do you know her?
I do.
Someone who runs an organization that has been considered a hate group by the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. Were you silent? Did you ever call her out on her remarks that are hateful or bigoted?
Senator, I've spoken to a number of groups, and I believe my record with respect to tolerance and the equal treatment.
Okay, so here's the part that's really funny. Okay, so what he's asking about specifically, because I looked up what the ADL says about Bridget and what they say about Frank. And they basically say the same thing about Bridget that they say about Frank. What they say about both is both of them have said that you can't really be a good American citizen if you are a fundamentalist Muslim. If you are a religious Muslim, you can't be a good American citizen. Now, that is something with which I disagree, depending on how you define religious Muslim. If you're defining religious Muslim as radical Muslim, then sure. If you're defining religious Muslim as somebody who goes to mosque, then of course not. But here's the part that's hilarious about what Booker is doing here. What Booker just said to Mike Pompeo is, if you are a religious Christian, you cannot be Secretary of State because you believe that homosexual activity is a sin. But you also cannot be Secretary of State if you say that members of a particular religion might not make good citizens. You see a little bit of the contradiction here? So in other words, Cory Booker says that if you say that Islam is not compatible with democracy, then that is bigoted, which, might be sort of like a quarter to half true. Okay, but then he says if you're a Christian, then that's not compatible with democracy. So how is this working exactly? How is this working exactly? But it shows the extremism of the left. Again, if President Trump wants to get reelected, all he has to do is somehow convince the left to nominate Cory Booker, who is a complete nut job. Joe Biden is obviously considering a White House run in 2020, and he is making noises saying like, well, I'm not going to run if there's somebody else on the Democratic side who can win. And then, of course, he's going to run because he's going to say there's no one else on the Democratic side who can win. The big problem for the Democrats is that Joe Biden might be the only guy who really has a credible shot of beating Trump. It ain't Cory Booker. It ain't Kirsten Gillibrand. It certainly ain't Kamala Harris. All three of those people are too busy ensconced in their own identity politics of stupidity and alienating vast swaths of America to ever win the presidency. So here is Biden basically launching his presidential run.
I'm really hoping that some other folks step up. I think we have some really good people. Rev, I know Barack always asked me that question. And he said, what's going to make the decision? I got to be able to look in the mirror, and if I walk away, know I'm not walking away because I'm afraid or I'm worried about losing or that I just don't want to take on the responsibility. I got to walk away knowing that it is there's somebody who can do it and can win because we've got to win. We've got to win in 2020.
Okay, so Biden obviously thinks he's the best shot at doing that. Here's the problem for Biden. Biden may be too moderate for the modern Democratic Party. He could be. He might be too moderate. He might not be identity politics enough. He might not be wildly, crazily anti-Trump enough. Ted Lieu is a congressman from out here in California. He says, listen, if we take the House, we're going to go full-scale investigation, balls to the wall, right? Wall-to-wall investigations of President Trump. Nothing would be better calibrated to win Trump re-election than extremism on the part of Democrats.